Hey guys, it's Spacer Sims, and we are back with more Paradigm Paradox, continuing Rio's route, and we just spent the night with him. I mean, not like that. But we were out, whatever. Ibuki came and found us, and then Rio acted like, whatever, get out of here, and is being all cold and aloof. And I'm sure it's not really him. I don't think he wants other people to know what he's really like. I think he tries to hide his personality and like whatever, and he was kind of opening up more with us. And then, Ibuki showing up, whatever, and then being like, he's everyone's enemy, and him just being like, yep, not gonna fight that, and then whatever. So, and to be fair, you have to consider if he's even kind of concerned about us at all, he would be like, yeah, you know what, it's better go with Ibuki, whatnot, because he doesn't want to jeopardize... Sorry. Ugh. Hold on. He doesn't want to jeopardize, like, our, safety with the Vector group, because he knows we can't go back to Theta, probably. And then we can't stay here if Ibuki hates us and mistrusts us, and he can't take care of it. You know what I mean? So, being like, yeah, actually, it's better go. I don't need you here, pushing us away, makes it easier for us and whatnot. And for us to be accepted back into Ibuki's group, But anyway. So Ibuki is dragging us home. Ibuki is like, you are not hanging out with that grown-ass adult man, young lady. Even though he's kind of a grown-ass adult man too, but not quite as grown-ass as fucking Rio, but, But again, surprisingly, I'm not hating this route so far. I'm kind of into it, so. Ibuki continued to hold my hand as we walked back to the colony. Ibuki, you can let go of my hand now. Is there a reason to let go? No, because I do love you. I guess not, but I'm not a kid, In my eyes, you're a child. Okay, and then you say that, and then it makes your, fawning over me in the last one weird. Can we not keep calling me a child? Indignation flared in me as I recalled Rio's words from last night. So now you're treating me like a kid, too. Sounds like Rio did the same. I frowned, annoyed. He was spot on. Ibuki shrugged with a dry chuckle. All right, you've made your point. Cheer up. He finally let go of my hand. If I hadn't spoken up, I think he would have held it all the way back to Tao. By the way, how did you know where to find Rio's tent? I was curious how Ibuki had known exactly where to find me. I've always got my eye on him. I keep track of his whereabouts just in case anything happens. Incidentally, that's the nearest base he has to Tao. Rio has other bases apparently, but that's the only one I watch closely. Rio had switched his original destination because I'd been shadowing him. It was clear he did in fact have multiple bases. You weren't certain that's where I'd be? Ibuki nodded. I hit the mark. It was a total coincidence, but I figured if you weren't in the colony, you were somewhere outside, so I came looking. I headed out there because I thought I could ask Rio if he'd seen you around. Imagine my surprise when I found you. Apparently, Ibuki had only come out this way to gather an eyewitness report of my whereabouts, but he found exactly what he was looking for. And do you mind if I ask a question of my own? Why were you with Rio? I felt embarrassed talking about it. After all, I was with Rio because I'd been stalking him. I responded reluctantly. I was just really curious about him, and so I followed him, and then, it got dark, and it wasn't safe to come back. That's all you have to fucking say. He's such a mysterious guy, He made me so curious, I just had to follow him. Didn't take long for him to notice me. But then he let me tag along. When it got dark, he let me stay the night in his tent. My explanation seemed to give Ibuki pause. He looked upset for a moment. I mean, again, she's like, ooh, how do I say this? Exactly how you said it. I was really just curious, and the curiosity got the better of me. I love a good mystery. He noticed you, but let you keep following him. I don't think that fits the definition of stalking. Can we maybe drop the stalking thing? You know what's weird? She brought that up in her head. She didn't say that to Ibuki, but Ibuki came up with it. It's like the writers kind of forgot that her talking about stalking was in her head and not out loud. Come to think of it, though, Rio really is odd. He let me follow him and even talked with me. Even the half day I'd spent with Rio made me feel like I understood him a little more. He wasn't one to give up his secrets that easily, though. After all, Ibuki made it sound like he knows Rio's true nature. Hey, just how well do you know Rio anyway? How well do I know him? What do you mean? Like, what's he working towards? You know, things like that. Rio hasn't told me any of his goals directly, but I'm pretty confident I know what he's up to. I said back there that Rio's an enemy, but regardless of his loyalties, he's useful to me, so I don't really care if he's not on my side. I'll say this much, though. If you keep hanging around Rio, I promise you'll wind up very sad. Something made it hard to deny what Ibuki was saying. My response was defiant, but fell flat. You don't know that for sure. Don't I? You're already looking pretty glum. I was shocked when Rio told me to stay away. I really enjoyed spending time together and helping him with his work. You shouldn't get involved with Rio any further. But I think he'd agree with me. Ibuki gazed off into the distance. Was he suggesting he could take on Rio if it was ever necessary to do so? Even if he is suggesting that it's absolutely 100% true, I'm pretty sure Ibuki could kill Rio with a snap of his fingers, if he wanted to. Or was he saying he didn't care about Rio's activities and their consequences? I wasn't really sure. Probably both. A little bit of both, maybe. I'll wind up very sad, will I? Ibuki's casual tone couldn't hide the note of concern in his voice. Maybe he was saying that one day Rio's activities would result in a future that's at odds with any kind of future I'd want. Sorry. I looked up. A thick screen of gray, gloomy clouds blotted out the sky as usual. Every breath I took burned in my chest. Gray and gloomy. It's exactly how I feel right now. And then we're going to tell Lizzie that we spent time with Rio, and she's going to be like, are you, like, in love with him? When we got back to Tao, I left Ibuki and went straight to see Lizzie. I'm back. Lizzie barreled over to me at the first sound of my tentative greeting. Speezy, you're finally back! Lizzie's face was tight with exhaustion. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Lizzie, I'm so sorry I didn't come back last night. You must have been out of your mind with worry. You bet I was! You just up and disappeared into thin air, and then you didn't come back at night! I was beside myself! I know, I'm so sorry. I should have told you, but something came up and I left the colony. And now you're going to explain your thought process. Tell me why you left and what possessed you to stay out all night. Is that clear? Okay, Mom. Jesus. Crystal. Lizzie's reaction was fair enough. It was my actions that caused her to worry. Of course I'd explain everything to her. Honestly, though, I'm just glad you're back in one piece. Hey, are you hungry? That's when I realized I was running on empty. Placed my hand on my stomach. Now that you mention it, I haven't eaten since dinner. I'm starving. Well, I haven't been able to eat a single bite since you up and vanished. Wait, you haven't? That's how much you worried me. I couldn't even muster up an appetite. Suddenly, I was very cognizant about how much my actions affected Lizzie. I'm sorry, I won't keep secrets from you anymore. Like, she'd be worried about us if we disappeared in Theta. Probably not as much. But, like, here, she doesn't also have her own family or anything here, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, she's gotten okay with Yukonami and Hyuga and Ibuki and everything, but it's not the same as, like, your comfort level in Theta was, where if I was gone for a night, you'd be worried, but you'd find someone, you'd be able to find me. Here, it's like, this is a totally different situation for both of us, so there's still a little bit of uncertainty in this situation, so making her even more stressed out, you know? Finally, Lizzie stopped frowning. Her face softened. Yep. I'm holding you to that promise. I admit my appetite's come roaring back now that you're safe and sound. It's a bit late, but let's have some lunch. I thought you might be hungry when you returned, so I had lunch made in advance. Thank you, Lizzie. Lizzie grabbed some plates from the back of the room and placed them on a table with a proud grin. Ta-da! Look what I made! I call them mock pancakes. Well, how are they mock pancakes? Anyway, wow! I was amazed at how good the pancakes looked. I never thought I'd taste another pancake again, not as long as I was in Tao. Is it because, like, we don't have the exact ingredients, so they're like pancakes, but they're not? They're mock because I couldn't get most of the ingredients here, but I did my best. Let's eat. Ah, so yeah, okay. Yep, let's dig in. I just noticed she has, like, turquoise nail polish. Or, like, minty green. Shit, Her nail polish matches her eyes. Like, I literally just noticed now. Like, to be fair, we haven't seen Lizzie as much as we've seen Moravia, so the fact that I didn't notice Moravia and Ibuki's eyes, like the heterochromia switches when he changes genders. Like, or Lizzie's nail polish. Well, I took a bite. The pancakes were sweet as syrup and fluffy as a cloud. So good. These are incredible. Your reaction makes all the toiling worthwhile. I think I'll have some too. I couldn't remember the last time I gorged on sweets. I polished off the pancakes in no time. Once our meal was done, we got to discussing everything that had happened yesterday. After I left, I hung out with Rio. Who's that? Oh, remember the fairy guy? His name's Rio Tomatsuka. I'd forgotten Lizzie had been asleep since we left Theta and only woke up when we reached Tau. She hadn't met Rio face to face. She just thinks of him as some fae who comes and goes for academy maintenance projects. The fairy? You mean the maintenance worker we sometimes saw on campus? What's someone like him doing outside the colony? Kind of a long story. I explained that Rio actually worked as support for the Blooms, but he was also somehow involved with the Vectors matters. I also threw the part about Rio's mysterious air and how I wound up sleeping in his tent last night. I see! So that's how it all went down, but I left out the part where he got inappropriate and pushed me against the wall, but I really kind of liked that. Crazy, right? At first I was like, really? The maintenance fairy? Talk about a surprise. So then, what happened? Well, a lot, actually, but it seems like Rio still has secrets he's hiding. As I gave voice to my thoughts, Lizzie looked at me with a vexed expression on her face. She's like, are you, like, in love with him? He's a grown-ass man. No, I mean, you spent the night with a man. Something must have happened, right? Lizzie's like, you spent the night with a man. What happened? Girl, not everyone's as horny as you. Although, to be fair, me, main character as herself, yeah, no, it was appalled. Oh my god, whatever. He's like, me as her would have been like, yeah, put your money where your mouth is, bitch. Rio pinning me against the wall. Are we doing this whole men are wolves bullshit? Because, you know what? Don't test a bitch, alright? Come on. The only way they can get away with that in Otome games is because the main characters are always virginal wallflowers. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I couldn't even hold hands with a boy. Oh my god, you're looking at me. I'm blushing. I'm gonna die. Really? A normal fucking... Like, again, my demisexual ass doesn't even matter. You're gonna pin me to a wall like this? Like, alright. Let's tussle, motherfucker. You're gonna... Yeah. Oh yeah, you want to see my gratitude? Alright. Then you're gonna have to show me your gratitude tomorrow. Like... And then that would just really shut him the fuck up, because he was just trying to tease us, and he'd be like, that doesn't work when you, like, fight back, or, like, just act like you're okay with this, and you're like, because, like, hi. Some characters doing that to me, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not, I'm gonna knee you in the balls. But, like, you know, Rio doing it, okay. Alright. Listen, Ibuki and Tokio are my favorites. It's kind of out of character for both of them. I would say Ibuki would have been more the kind to do that than Tokio, obviously. But Ibuki doesn't understand normal human things because he's kind of like a robot as well. Just a different kind. You know. So, I don't think he'd really ever cross that line like that because it wouldn't occur to him. You know? So, fine. Rio did it. I'll accept it because, again, I'm not hating this route so far. Like, Rio, you're the kind of character I like. You got glasses. Again, the vest. And you're kind of a standoffish asshole. Yeah. You know, a robotic standoffish asshole. That's my type. So, like, you know, they did you a little dirty in the hair department, and sometimes with your sprites, it's not the best. But, like, still, personality-wise, I'm here for it. So, you know, I'm not going to hate it. And somebody had to push me up against a wall at some point, right? So, I'll take it. Something? Like what? I like how that just splashes in her head really fast. You could have held on a little bit longer, CG. That's so far the best one in his route. I thought about how Rio brushed me off as a kid and my cheeks started burning. Of course Lizzie saw my face light up. What? blush? Did something happen? Like, something? Tell me everything. Again, and here's Lizzie not being like, wait. He's a grown-ass man. Like, nobody cares. All right. Okay, listen. I actually prefer that, because I know in my head, I'm like, well, the age thing's weird, but me putting myself in her position, like, self-inserting, not inappropriate. Maybe the other way around. I might be too old for him, but you know what I mean? Fine, but then when you think about the age thing, you're like, But I much prefer, if there's gonna be an age difference thing, that, like, yeah, it's always gonna be in the back of my mind where I'm like, that's the part that I don't love. But I can overall, when you get to the end, be like, yeah, no, it was a good round. I'm kind of enjoying it. It doesn't bother me that much. You know? It's still an portion of it, but it's like, I didn't like this portion of the character, but I liked everything else. You know what I mean? It's not gonna sour my opinion of the route. It sours my opinions of the routes when they keep bringing it up. But I like so far that I'm the one thinking about it, because they're like, oh my God, what happened? Did you do him? And you're like, nobody thinks it's inappropriate. I mean, Rio called me a kid, and you're like, don't do that, though. And then Ibuki called me a kid, and you're like, thank God you didn't say that in your route. Fair, true, compared to you guys, I am. But, like, Lizzie is not, like, saying anything about it, and we're not even thinking, well, God, no, he's old, you know? Like, I much prefer that than the other routes when we're like, oh my God, he's so much older. He's old. He's an old guy. We're old, and I'm so young, and you're too young. And they bring it up every other sentence, and it's like, don't remind me, because it's already a little icky to me. And I want to enjoy the route for what it is, and, like, take that and be like, it's in the back of my mind, and that part I don't love. But you can have a route where you're like, 98%, that little piece, I didn't love that. You know? Like, I didn't particularly enjoy Yukonami's route. You know, you're like, he's a little too much of a psycho and mentally a child and everything. But, like as a character himself, like, when you see him in other routes, like, he's perfectly fine. I don't hate him. You know what I mean? And, like, even some moments in his route were cute. But it was still like, I don't love it, and you know? So not my favorite. But I didn't hate it, you know? So there's always going to be moments or things that you're like, I don't love this, but I like this, and overall it was good, or God, every second was great. Or I loved everything, even though there were parts that I don't love about it. Like, right now, I don't love the age difference, but it's there, it is what it is. But everything else so far about the route, I'm like, it's not bothering me, I'm having a good time with it, you know? So I feel like at this moment, I'd be like, at the end, going, I liked this route. It was pretty good. Even if that little piece is something I don't love. I can forget about it, as long as they don't keep harping. I keep harping on it. I know. But I'm not harping on, like, oh, God, no, the age difference. I'm like, nobody else is bringing it up, and I appreciate that. You know what I mean? It helps me forget it a little bit easier. Or at least work around it and be like, it doesn't matter. Nothing happened. Nothing whatsoever. You'd be shocked at how little happened. I had triggered Lizzie's insatiable appetite for boy-related gossip. I'd never get her off the subject now. I gave her a few minutes to simmer down. That put her in a better state to consider what I was actually saying. I have to admit, I'm surprised our maintenance fairy has a whole other side to him. You should see him with glasses on. Rio with glasses on is far superior to Rio in his maintenance fairy costume without glasses. I'm just saying. The glasses work. He should never not wear glasses. I still have zero idea who this guy actually is, but I get the feeling he's someone you should probably steer clear of. Yeah, based on what Ibuki said, I think you're right. My response sounded more like a sigh. You seem down. You think so too, huh? Am I feeling down? Am I sad? But why? The only reason that added up was that I was hurt by Rio's harsh words earlier. I guess I'm still a bit shocked. But I don't blame him. I was just a hindrance, so it made sense for me to leave him alone. I knew that, so why did I still feel empty inside? Until now, I just figured Rio's the type of person you can't really get to know. But yesterday I saw a whole different side of him. He smiled when I helped him, he teased me a bit, and there were moments where he was just bristling with childlike joy. I saw the real Rio for the first time and I connected with him. I felt it. I just, I couldn't quite put into, I couldn't quite put what I was thinking into words, but Lizzie seemed to be able to. You felt happy, didn't you? Yeah, maybe you're right. He opened up to me and it made me feel like we were growing close. But when Ibuki had accused Ryo of being everyone's enemy, Ryo hadn't denied it, which meant I was technically his enemy too. In other words, Ryo wanted me to know the goodwill between us was totally one-sided. He'd just been putting up with me the whole time. I don't think that's the case. He was actually enjoying himself and opening up and just like, whatever, being comfortable with you. But then it's like the reality sinks in of like, he's everyone's enemy. And he's like, yeah, you know what? He's right. You should stay away from me. Because like, again, protecting himself. You know, everyone hates you. So of course you're not going to be like, no, guys, I'm actually nice. You're going to be like, yep, I'm an asshole. Sure. You're just going to accept it because it's easier than fighting it, you know? And he's got his own motive, and maybe whatever he's doing, he's like, I'm not really on anybody's side, therefore I'm everybody's enemy. Who knows? Like, whatever the logistics are. We don't know yet. But then, again, if Ibuki's like, he's everyone's enemy, that little part of him, again, not just protecting himself, protecting you, being like, well, you know what? He's right. And if I'm like, no, she's my friend, or you stay friends with me, or you try to defend me, they're going to think of you as their enemy and you being out here. What are you going to do? You can't go back to Theta because you've kind of like run away from that. It's not a good place for you to be. And especially if Ryo knows who we really are, you know what I mean? He's like, then he has to know, just like the commander and the professor, like the scientists will experiment on you. So you're better off not being there and them figuring it out eventually. And if then Ibuki thinks that you're siding with me, he's going to think of you as his enemy. And then where are you going to be? Floating out here with me alone. And that's no place for you to be. You know what I mean? He's like, it's one thing for him to make the decision to be living in the tents and wandering around like a nomad and not really having a place to belong. It's another thing to drag somebody else into it, especially someone who's really like so young. You know what I mean? You know, so he's probably like, it's better for me and it's better for you, so I'm just going to push you away and stone cold faced. Especially, too, because, like, Ibuki was there and then he's like, mask on again. So, I can absolutely see how that's working out. But then, of course, she's going to take it as he was just putting up with me. No, but he's got to put that face on, so. I guess if I'm feeling this sad, it means I'm disappointed I couldn't get closer to Ryo. Talking to Lizzie helped me sort out my feelings. But it was too late and I resigned myself to that. I am curious how we're going to spend more time with him, though. Inukis, why not pay another visit to her fairy friend? Ah, okay. I was like, are we going to end up going on trying to find him again or something? And then Lizzie's like, why don't you just do it, girl? What? But he told me not to come back. Who cares about that? Why should he get to boss you around? You don't have to listen to him. If the issue's weighing on you like this, you gotta find him again and have a talk. In fact, it's a must at this point. Lizzie's like, you want to bone this man, and if you go out, maybe you'll get boned, and you should get boned. Lizzie, simmer your vagina down. Even if Ibuki said that Mr. Fairy is a bad guy, it's up to you to draw your own conclusions. Not wrong. Maybe he's your enemy, maybe not. You won't find out for sure unless you talk to the man. Lizzie's advice was sound. It made the gloomy world I was wallowing in brighten with sudden promise. Yeah, Lizzie's right. Ibuki's statement shook me up, but I just accepted everything without digging deeper. I'll get an answer directly from him. Then I can decide if he's my enemy or not. Thank you, Lizzie. You've really helped me sort out my feelings. I'm gonna go see Ryo once more. It's the spirit. Lizzie smiled at me, clearly happy I had my mojo back. Yeah, because she's like, you like this guy. Well, we kind of already do. I mean, we've already kind of fallen a little bit for him. Fair. So, okay. So we'll see. Because, like, again, like, Hyuga's romance kind of didn't ever happen. So I'm curious how the romance is building here because I think Ryo trusts us a little bit. Like, oh, yeah, okay, opening up a little bit. But, like, that doesn't mean anything. Could just be like, oh, hey, someone that's, like, not hostile to me like everybody else. Okay. But I definitely see the romance building on her side, like her falling for him. But I'm curious at how he's going to end up falling for someone that he keeps calling a kid. Like, oh. When morning arrived, Lizzie saw me off. I headed back to where I'd last seen Rio. I wonder if he's at the same location as yesterday. He might have moved on now that I know where he is. Well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I'll head to the old camp and gather my thoughts. I was feeling more positive after a good night's sleep. I tried not to think too many steps ahead. I left Tao, scanned my memories, and chose my direction based on what I remembered. Soon a familiar tent appeared on the horizon. Rio's tent. It's still here! I was relieved to see it was still intact. I hurried over as quickly as I could. Is Rio still here? There was no sign of him through the tent window. Even the campfire had been snuffed out. I was disappointed to see he wasn't home, but I knew he could still be nearby. I roused myself and started scouting around. After a bit of a walk, I spotted the familiar figure of someone a little ways off. Ah, it's Rio! Rio stood alone, gazing up at the sky. Oh, is he flying the drone again? No, I don't think he's holding the remote control. I followed Rio's gaze, but only saw the heavy gray clouds overhead. Rio didn't pick up on my presence. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object. What's that? Is that a pendant of some kind? Ooh, it's a CG. He looks good in this CG too. This is a nice one. He's like holding up a necklace. And he's like looking at it sadly. Oh dear God, you don't have some kind of like dead girlfriend complex, do you? Like, oh no. Oh good Lord. Oh no. I'm just concerned now. You weren't in love with my mom, were you? Well, you would have been too young for that, but still. Rio lifted the pendant to the sky, then stood still. Yeah, but it's not a bad CG. He appeared to be deep in thought, or maybe he was praying. Either way, his face looked so sad. I felt my chest tighten with emotion. Listen. That would give him an interesting backstory if you, had a lover at some point and then she died. Maybe she was one of, the fucking Generation 1s or something. Well, again, you would have been too young. But, whatever. She was a science experiment or whatever. And that's why you started doing this, going out and, finding, doing whatever you're doing to try to fix the environment because, whatever. But it would also then be yeah, I'm only going to be, second to this woman that you're still out here pining over. No, the dead girlfriend scenario is so much worse than the age difference. Because then you're just, yes, if you're in love with someone and you break up, you get over them. If they die, you can move on. But the way these always do it they do it in games like that, it's when you meet them, they're not like, oh yeah, no, I had a relationship and it's kind of sad, but it's been years and I've moved on, but obviously, whatever. It's always this, I'm pining, and then 2 days later they're in love with you, and you're like, just, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? What am I, the rebound? That always just makes you feel kind of second fiddle. I don't know. We'll see what's happening. Maybe it's his parents. Who knows? Maybe his parents were also, experiments, and that's why he can breathe outside. We don't know. Anyway. Then I suddenly felt a jolt of alarm, as if Rio would vanish forever if I didn't intervene. Before I knew what I was doing, I ran over to him. Rio! I shouted his name with abandon. He turned, and when he saw me, his face grew stricken. You... A severe frown overtook his features. I thought I told you not to come back. Yes, I recall you saying something to that effect. Did you? Because I didn't quite get that. My response was belligerent, but I felt like it needed to be, or Rio would win our emotional struggle. I love the phrasing on that. And after seeing how sad and lonely he was, I was determined to stay by his side. Yeah, she's obsessed. There's a little bit more than, kind of romance. A little obsessed, but, okay, you know what, I'll buy it. Fine. I pointedly ignored Rio's glare as I approached him. Why are you here? I wanted to talk to you again. You agreed when Ibuki said you're everyone's enemy, but I need to hear it straight from you. What makes you a bad guy? Tell me. Once I've heard what you have to say, then I'll decide if you are or not. but not before. Rio needed to know I was determined to stand my ground, so I matched his glare without ever diverting my eyes. The stare down seemed to last for an eternity, but it was Rio who cracked first. Your will's stronger than I thought. Hearing him say that made me smile. Heck yeah, it is! You finally figured that out? Better hang on to that gumption. You're gonna regret hearing what I have to say. No, I won't. We might. There's happy music in the background, though, which is kind of funny. And I meant it. I believed that, however ugly the truth turned out to be, I would regret turning away from it far more. Yeah, valid. I could see that. Then come with me. If we're gonna talk, let's get settled in the tent. Okay. I tried to keep my excitement over my victory inside, but Rio likely heard the joyful note that slipped into my voice. Let's go in the tent. Okay. That joyful note. I was just glad he hadn't outright turned me away. I followed him to the tent, resisting the urge to strut. It would have been fucking hilarious, though, strutting into the tent. We entered the tent, and Rio pulled out 2 bottles of water. He handed one to me. Here, it's for my stocks. It should taste okay. Thank you. I took the bottle of water. Unsure of what to do next, I parked myself on the bed. Rio retrieved some kind of device from the desk and sat on the chair as he fiddled with it. Question. What do you suppose this is? He showed the device to me. I gazed at the screen on its front. Looks like some kind of map, maybe? The map displayed oceans and shorelines. I knew what those were in an academic sense, but I'd never seen anything like what he was showing me before. I'd never seen anything like he was showing me before. Wow. What's it a map of, though? That's just the one issue you're in the dark about. But then again, there aren't many folks who can look at this map and describe what it shows. Rio tapped his finger on the screen. At the very least, see here? The 3rd planet? 3rd planet? Oh, plant. Plant. Wait, did he? I thought he said planet. No, he did say plant. I don't know why all of a sudden I was like, we're looking at a map and then you're talking about, like, Earth? You know what I mean? 3rd plant. My brows knitted together as I repeated the phrase. I guess you don't know much about the world outside Theta, but there are lots of other colonies, too, so I'm assuming that's what those blue dots are. And then there's a giant red one. I know that much. I mean, we learned about it at the Academy. Theta's the largest populated colony, right? But if I recall correctly, there are smaller colonies in different regions. Everybody in Theta had basic knowledge of the colonies, but travel between them was forbidden, so regular folks rarely contacted the outside. Right. But what you don't know is that Theta and all of those small colonies are all inside the 3rd plant. And this map shows the 3rd plant right here. See? Rio pointed to a specific area on the map. I could see a small island located beside a larger landmass. I held my breath as I studied the map, stunned by what I was seeing. Like, literally Earth. All of the colonies are contained within this 3rd plant. And the 3rd plant is this tiny island? Like, literally, like, there's no other colonies? Aside from Japan? What the fuck did you guys do to the rest of us? Wait a minute. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying, if anyone's going to obliterate the fucking planet, it's probably going to be the United States, okay? We got one-upmanship on, like, fucking everybody's shit up. I mean, do you know? Okay, I'm just saying, we try to be the biggest assholes. Alright, so, like, you're trying to tell me you out-assholed us? Damn! Shit! I don't know if we should be ashamed or proud. Like, thank God we're not the biggest asshole. We did not destroy the planet. Woo! Like, so, oh, wait. Is he gonna be like, only Japan is, that we got planets. The rest, everybody else is fine. The world's normal out there. You know that, right? We're just fucking, that would be so fucking insane. What was I saying? Didn't I say that? Like, maybe we're just a science experiment and then they went outside the colony and I was like, oh, well, there goes that idea. Didn't think that I was like, well, the rest of the world is fine, but just this little, this area, that's the only thing that's totally fucked. Now that would actually be kind of good. So this is a map of the entire world? Yes, and there are several large continents. And when you look at the map, you get an idea of how tiny the third plant is in the grand scheme of things. Why are they calling it the third plant? The third plant, it's... Look, this is a lot to take in, but it's all true. I'm not from the third plant. I'm from the outside world. The outside world? I mumbled in disbelief. I heard what Rio was saying, but the words just wouldn't sink in. Or wait. This reality he was pitching was so far removed from everything I knew, I couldn't process it. I get why you're shocked. I'm a spy sent from the outside to infiltrate the third plant. A spy. It was a loaded word, and Rio was freely labeling himself with it. I'm thinking about it, I'm not just a double agent who works for both the Blooms and the Vectors. I'm actually more of a triple agent. I told you! What did I say? What did I say before we started this round? I was like, what if he's like a triple agent? He's working for the higher-ups. Okay, wait, though. But he's like, the third plant is basically... Was he trying to say the third plant is Japan? Like, the whole island? And then he's like, I'm from the outside world. But that's... Okay. So, like, that's implying that... But they're still not explaining that. He's like, I'm from the outside world. You like, see this area, this island here? That's the third plant. But I don't know why it's the third plant. Why did they go with the word plant? I'm still not comprehending third plant. Like, you know what I mean? That's not like... Well, unless like you have like water sewage treatment plants and you have nuclear power plants. I mean, unless they're going like that. But for some reason, third plant just isn't descriptive enough to tell me exactly what the fuck you mean by that. But like, okay, outside world, you came from somewhere else, but that implies that the whole world isn't a doomed hellscape like we think it is. Like, okay, you know how you're in this little dome and then you came into the outside world? Well, the outside world, okay, Japan isn't a bigger dome. That's a science experiment. Like, that goes back to what I said. Maybe we're just a science experiment and we think the outside world's destroyed and it's like some M. Night Shyamalan shit going on out here, right? But then we went to the outside world and I was like, okay, well, there goes that. But that's would actually be brilliant. Like, oh, you have Theta and you have all these other colonies you're not allowed to visit. And you're thinking when you're just inside the walls of the colony, you're like, I'm not allowed to visit them because they don't actually exist because we're a science experiment. But then Mahaya's family went outside and then we saw the outside and you're like, okay. But then it's like, but the outside is actually also inside a bigger dome. You're in a tiny dome inside a bigger dome in the actual world where everybody's perfectly fucking fine and you're just a science experiment. And actually, I kind of love that. I don't know if that's where they're going with this. But that's amazing. Oh my god. But I knew it, but the triple agent thing came up when it's like, well, I mean... Infiltrate the third plant's factions. Those were my orders from the outside world. Orders? My voice was trembling, but I managed to squeak the word past my shaking lips. And then the higher-ups are the people monitoring the experiment. I can't let you in on the nature of my orders, however. Rio's hard gaze softened for a moment. The truth is... what I'm trying to do won't end well for the third plant or any of its people. Ibuki wasn't being dramatic. I really am an enemy. I'm a threat to you, to everyone living on this island. My heart made a cry that I couldn't voice. I wanted to speak, but I couldn't form words. All I could do was sit, lip quivering. Yeah, but what's going on outside? We might not find that out. Rio seemed suddenly nervous. He took a deep breath and drank from his water bottle. It's kind of interesting because, the outside world implies, like, and the third plant implies that there's two others, right? So it implies that there's at least two other, like, whatever they're considering plants. Let's think them like bubble domes. Right? And then the outside world implies that it's like, okay, normal people going about their lives like we're going about our lives, not realizing that there is a bubble over some island in the fucking ocean. Okay, well, that was Japan, but like whatever. The one that we don't know about that they're doing experiments in. You know what I mean? That it's just hidden location or something. Or, you know what I mean? Or like, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, what does he mean by outside world and third plant? You know, they're going to have to, I mean, that's what the finale route, I'm sure, is, but it definitely implies to me that there is a science experiment. There's 2 other plants at least, if we're the third one, or it's the third one because it's the third test we've been doing. But what is the outside world? What do you mean by outside world? Because to us, Theta is our colony, and where we are right now in this tent is the outside world. But you're implying that there's something outside of this. So, like, are we living in a dome, Theta, inside of a bigger dome, what we think is the outside world, and there's something outside of that? That's crazy, and I love it. I love it! Anyway, did I read that? Rio seemed suddenly nervous. He took a deep breath and drank from his water bottle. Well, we better wrap up this discussion. I guess you understand everything now. I understand nothing. Rio's question was almost comical. I understood nothing. I had no idea what to think. I understand less than I did before we started this. So that's a map of the whole world. And the colony I was born and raised in is just a tiny dot on a tiny island? When I first left Theta, the world seemed to sprawl on forever, but I'd only seen a speck of what it offered. Also, what's the giant red dot? Is that like generally the area, like Theta and Tau and everything are in? The world I knew didn't seem the least bit tiny to me. My mind simply wouldn't accept that the actual world was so much bigger. Again, the whole universe concept. However big you might think the real world is, it's actually magnitudes bigger than that. I mean, because we're inside of a dome, and then we come out to the outside world, which might not actually be outside of anything. I thought back to what Rio said when we left Theta and traveled to the Vector colony. The full weight of his words started to sink in. I'd be like, I'm going to need you to back up and be like, okay, so Theta, we're on this island, and these are the other colonies, And what do you mean this right now where we are is the outside world to me? What do you mean by the outside world? What do you mean by the outside world? But this, where we're sitting right now, that I consider the outside world, is the third plant. What's outside of this, then? Is this a fucking dome? Am I living in a dome inside of a dome? Is that inside another dome? On an orb floating in space? That goes on forever? How deep does this go? I love this. Rio says he's from the outside world, so it's weird he doesn't look much different from us. I mean, he looks like a normal human. He claims he's essentially an enemy from a totally foreign land, but Rio seemed completely normal. I couldn't picture him as anything but normal. As I stared at him, Rio narrowed his eyes in irritation. Go on and stare. I'm thrilled to be your sideshow. Rio, are you human? You sure love your weird questions, don't you? I'm a normal human being, as you can see. Are you disappointed I'm not a monster? Or a robot? You absolutely are a fucking robot, though, so let's be real. You might not actually be like a tin, metal, like, robot android, but you're a fucking robot personality-wise, okay? No, I'm sorry. So you're human. I guess I'm having trouble grasping the idea of humans living outside the colonies. Now, when he showed up, if he, instead of showing us that he has one of the crystals or whatever, the Orby things in his watch, if he had just been like, hey, don't worry about it, and then was like, actually, I'm an android, that would have been even better. He's literally a robot. I'm just saying, you could have gone all the way with the insanity. How many people live in this outside world? Way more than there are in the third plant. Wherever there's land, there's people on it, right? And that's all I can say. Yes, so it sounds like we're a science experiment, and what's in here and what we think is doomed wasteland is not. How did this happen? I guess people will settle wherever they can. Wow, there must be countless people out there. I was honestly shocked. I felt like too much new info was being stuffed into my head at one time, and my brain was about to burst. But if Rio is really our enemy, why hasn't he done anything that'd make him seem like a bad guy? Nothing that Rio's done up to this point, including the time we spent yesterday and today, indicates that he wants to harm us. Ibuki said he was bad. Rio even said so himself, but I just couldn't regard him as a threat. Maybe that's the reason why. Well, to be fair, look at all the things that have been happening. Like, the humans are creating vectors, the vectors are attacking humans, the people in the quote-unquote outside world, outside whatever experiment we're probably in, see it all happening, and they're just like, no, let it happen. So they're even, I feel like those are the higher-ups. You know what I mean? They're watching this experiment, and the researchers think that they're in control of these experiments, but there's somebody else using them as experiments to experiment on other people. Holy shit. This goes like meta right now, right? But like, so Rio being from the outside world and kind of poking around and kind of seeing what's going on in here and testing both groups and kind of like working in between, you would think, even if you're not doing anything wrong, like instigating wars, right? You're not stopping anything from happening. You're in here poking around at the plant life. You're in here doing whatever for the blooms, doing whatever for the vectors, kind of just letting these battles happen, letting the vectors attack the other humans and turn them into vectors, and then think about the bad ends in Ibuki's route where he goes fucking ballistic and just obliterates every fucking human and they're like, you're going from fucking colony to colony, just killing everyone and turning them into vectors, right? Rio, being an outside world person, is like, I'm just watching this happen like it's fucking a TV show. Like I'm watching some fucking Netflix special. You know what I mean? But it's different if he was outside watching this experiment, because you could be like, click, I'm going to shut off my brain and pretend that these aren't real people. And like, I'm just watching something on Netflix. Wow, the people who wrote this movie are crazy, right? You could disassociate. But he's in here. He's talked to these people. You know what I mean? So he's more like, he can't disassociate like the people in the rest of the outside world that are running what I'm assuming is an experiment. That's what I'm going to call it until we know any better, right? He's in here talking to people. He's talking to you. He's talked to Misaki. He's talked to Ibuki. He knows these people. So it's like, these are real people, not just characters to him. He can't make that disassociation. So knowing that he's not stopping anything or doing anything and keeping all these secrets makes you feel like you're a bad person, because obviously he has some sort of a conscience that like other people don't have. Because he's like, these are real people that we're fucking with. Kind of the way the professor, or Yashima, whatever, was like, I was doing all these experiments, and then like I got close to like our parents and was like, hey, you know what, this is kind of bullshit. And so he helped them escape because he has a conscience. You know what I mean? And was like, yeah, I realized that this is kind of fucked up what I was doing, and then I pieced out and left. You know what I mean? And he feels guilty for all the shit he's doing. Misaki also was like, you know, yeah, I'm gonna go be a teacher. And even though he's still kind of doing shady things, he's doing everything he can to protect everyone in the Blooms as best he can without being ostracized and like probably executed. Okay, you know what I mean? He's like, I'm gonna try to stay in their good graces and do what I can to protect these girls / boys, whatever, you know? So like, but the people who are running this experiment that we're probably living in are like, ha ha ha, dance my puppets, and they don't care. Kind of like how Ibuki, when he snaps, he's like, yeah, kill all the humans, turn them into vectors, has no conscience about the fact what he's doing. You're like, that's some fucked up shit. But like, Rio obviously has a conscience and is like, I'm talking to these people, and these are people, and we're doing, but like, I'm not gonna get involved, I'm just gonna do my job and shut my mouth, and that's why he stays away. You know what I mean? But then everybody's like, he's evil. And he's like, can't really deny that, because I'm not really doing anything to stop this shit, I'm just coming in here and doing my job. You know what I mean? Like, damn, though. But now I want to know more about this experiment that we're part of, that's also an experiment inside of an experiment. Shit. Anyway. You don't seem at all hostile. You're contradicting yourself. I kind of, like, they're both, like, you don't seem hostile, but that's true. But I feel like him being a bad guy or being a threat doesn't necessarily, he doesn't have to be hostile to be a threat. You know what I mean? So I think you're contradicting yourself. No, so you don't seem hostile. I'm like, I kind of feel like it's more like you're kind of contradicting yourself. You're saying you're bad, but nothing you're doing is bad. But you just don't come across as hostile. I mean, it's just not something I can believe. Rio smiled wryly and shrugged. True, I haven't been running around killing people or planning any dastardly plots, so I might seem harmless enough to you. But not every bad person acts the same. Don't judge your enemies according to the hostility they show. Or don't show. So he says, but if that's what he believes, why give me such a warning? I didn't say as much, but I had a feeling the heart of Rio's mysterious character lay in that warning. Maybe he didn't actually want to do anything that would hurt the third plant. At least, that's how I read the expression on his face. I better change the subject so I can get as much information from him as possible. Explain this third plant and then the outside world to me. I thought back to what I saw Rio doing before I called out to him. That's right, he was looking at that pendant. He seemed so sad. Maybe it was something important to him. I saw you looking at something earlier. Was that a pendant of some kind? Ah. I have a pendant too. A memento of my parents. It's really precious to me. Does the one you were looking at mean a lot to you too? Rio seemed surprised for a moment before he awkwardly looked away. Okay. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty dismissive response. Maybe I better let that topic be. No, I'm curious. I thought asking a question might change the subject, but I guess that's not a good one. I felt quite bad about Rio's reaction, so I decided not to press the issue any further. Rio also seemed to be done with the conversation. He went to the tent's entrance and opened it up. No doubt you never told Ibuki where you were going. Better get back before night falls. Rio's tone was cold and final. Resigned, I nodded. Okay. I started to head out of the tent, shoulders slumped. I'd be like, I honestly know nothing about this whole thing, though. Still, you need to tell me more. He's like, you see this map? Uh-huh. You see the, okay, yeah, and then this is the third plant, and then this is the outside world. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? If I leave now, I get the feeling that we'll never meet again. I remembered how I thought the same thing yesterday. I don't know, like, obviously, here's the thing. She's going to be confused about whatever they tell you because it's outside her realm of understanding. You know what I mean? Because she's thinking, I grew up in Tau, the whole world's been destroyed. Now she's in the, like, she is getting a lot of information thrown at her about shit, right? So being like, see this island? See this tiny dot? That's where you live. And then this is the, and then, okay. So like her being like, I don't understand a damn thing. Fine. Are we supposed to understand a damn thing? Because I don't understand a damn thing. I mean, I'm making assumptions here, but he's like, see this island? That's the third plant, and I come from the outside world. And you're like, but to us, right now where we are is the outside. So, but he didn't explain that, and like, I get her not comprehending it because, like, you know, when he's like, the world is way bigger than you think it is. Again, that's like trying to wrap your brain around the universe never ending. It's like, it's true, but it's still fucking hard to comprehend. You know what I mean? So, like... But then being like, okay, so you live in town and you thought that was big, and then you come to the outside world and you think this is big, and I'm telling you that this isn't even the outside world, there's something even bigger outside of this, because you're basically, like, but all he's saying is third plant and outside world. And I'm making assumptions on what he means, but he never explained that, so I don't know if we're supposed to be as confused as her, or the writers thought that we'd be like, oh, I get it, and she's confused, but we're not supposed to be. Am I the only one confused a little? Like, by his explanation kind of explained literally nothing. Worst explanation ever. You're clearly not a robot, because a robot would have been able to explain things better, is all I'm saying. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, he's like, you're all caught up now, you're good, and you're like, no! What? It's like, you just told me 2 + 2 is 86, and then you're like, good, right? And you're like, I don't understand your logic. Anyway, I remembered how I thought the same thing yesterday. I was scared we wouldn't meet again, but look, we're together here and now because Rio's in the same spot I left him yesterday. I came to a stop as realization washed over me. Why are you still here? I already told you, I'm doing survey work. That's not what I mean. I already knew about this base, so I figured you probably wouldn't be here when I came looking for you today. But here you are. You never moved on. Oh, now he's sweating. Rio stood frozen with one hand on the tent flap. Rio? I examined his face, which had taken on a confused, conflicted expression. His gaze wavered slightly as if he was suddenly uncertain about everything he believed. See, okay, like, I guess I could almost believe, like, I don't know if it's necessarily romantic feelings, but he definitely feels something like he was kind of maybe hoping we'd come back. Because he's definitely opening up to us. So is there like a bond here? Yes. I feel that. I don't know if it's romantic. On our part, I feel like she's kind of in love with him and she just can't admit it. I don't know if he'd be in love with her, but there's definitely a bond, like a trust thing. So, okay. This is just one possibility, but could Rio have stayed behind because he hoped he'd get to talk to me one last time? Is that why he's still in this spot? If that was the case, it meant we still had a common ground that we could use to understand one another. I'm moving on tomorrow. Rio sensed where I was heading and cut me off with a curt denial. I have no intention of ever seeing you again. He's like, I have no intention of ever seeing you again, but it doesn't mean I don't want to see you ever again. You still haven't answered me. Just take off, would you? My options were dwindling. If I left now, I knew Rio would be gone for good. Kiss him. I don't want that. I have to say something, but what's left to say? But I love you. He's not an enemy to you. Say nothing and leave. I feel like say nothing and leave is a bad option. Absolutely, because we have to make a save file, so you know damn well that means one of these is a bad choice. And I feel say nothing and leave is a bad choice. Telling him he's not your enemy right before you leave is probably going to help, so. I'm betting on the he's not your enemy. Say he's not an enemy to you. That one was obvious. I can't really give myself props for that, but I will anyway. Listen, I just can't see you as my enemy, Rio. I can't do it. In the end, I just repeated the feeling that burned brightest in my heart. You're still on about that. You really need to grow up. See, stuff like this makes it obvious that you're still a child. I feel like he's trying to convince himself. He's like, you're still a child. You're just a child. So that he's like, this is inappropriate. It's slightly inappropriate that you're attracted to a 16, maybe 17-year-old girl. So I feel like this is you trying to push away those feelings. You're just a kid. You're just a stupid kid. Instead of trying to see me as the woman that you want me to be. But please stop saying it. Because it makes it weird. I'm just saying what I feel. That makes me a kid, then I'm a kid. It doesn't matter what you feel or don't feel. Fact is, I'm a danger to you, and I'll never be anything more. That's all there is to it. This really does feel like a man who's like, I'll never be anything more than a danger to you. It's kind of dramatic, don't you think? Like, I have feelings for you, but I'll never be anything but a danger. Like, do you feel that slight drama there? Rio flung open the tent's entry flap, signaling the conversation was well and truly over, but us being like, I just don't think you're my enemy, is gonna worm its way into his little heart. Get out. He pushed my back to hurry me out. I was dumped unceremoniously outside the tent. I'm gonna untransform and then you can't push me out because then I'll die out here. Man, I wanted to talk longer, but I don't think Rio will say another word to me, no matter how long I hang around here. I guess that's that. Rio and I will never see each other again. Lies. It was a sad realization, but I didn't have the luxury of standing around to mope. The sun would be setting before much longer. The outer world. I looked up at the sky distractedly. I was quite a ways from Theta, but then I realized I wasn't very far if the third planet really was so small. When you looked at the world as a whole, it wasn't much of a distance at all. And that would explain why the sky is always so dark and cloudy, because they're like, we don't want you to know you're inside of a dome inside of a dome. The enormity of the world suddenly weighed down on me, and I trembled from the pressure of it. I felt as insignificant as an insect against the vastness of the world outside. A nameless fear started rising up in me. I mean, it doesn't mean that something couldn't have happened, you know, some kind of like nuclear war or whatever, and then there's like little plants and domes and things, but like the outside world, because this is far in the future. Like the outside world actually managed to survive, but but now it's like, okay, or something was happening, so we domed off certain areas that then we're doing experiments on because the planet is dying, and it's like we're trying to figure out solutions and things, and so we've got these science experiments going on in certain areas that were impacted by certain types of climate change or war scenarios or whatever, you know what I mean? And like, hey, the rest of the world built itself back, but we kept these little bubble domes going on, doing these experiments in, because human beings are indeed fucked. Like, so they would do fucky shit like this, you know? So, like, to be fair, the scientists being like, we're going to try to do human experimentation to find a way for humans to live outside. You're like, yeah, sounds like shit humans would do. Absolutely. Fucking around with other people and, like, giving no fucks about human. We've done that plenty of times in the past. So why would we not do it in the future? Because humans suck. And then to be like, well, it's actually humans who are directing other humans to do human experimentation. Well, that's another level of crazy. And yeah, makes sense. Absolutely believable. Anyway, I felt as insignificant as an insect against the vastness of the world outside. That's actually how you are as a human. You're just an insect on this tiny little planet that's floating in this giant fucking never-ending vastness of space. A nameless fear started rising up inside me when you think about how vast the universe is and you're just a tiny little speck on a tiny little rock. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it long enough, you're like, yeah, it's kind of terrifying. It's terrifying to even think about. And yet I wasn't sure what I was afraid of exactly. My spirit's heavy. I began to make the trip back to Tau. This is getting more interesting, honestly, because I like some of, like, we had the things and, like, the vectors, and then they're humans, and then you learn some other things, and you learn more about yourself, and then Rio comes along and is like, oh, by the way, actually, everything is completely even more fucked. You're like, that's cool. I like that. But again, that was my assumption in the very beginning I made. I'm like, are we just an experiment? Like, everybody's normal, and we just think the world outside is, like, destroyed, but it's really not. And then we went outside, and it was like, oh, I guess Mihai's parents wouldn't have been allowed to go out. But that would also explain why you're not allowed to go to other colonies. Why that? And it's like, no. You're keeping everybody kind of isolated. Like, yeah, they have caravans going around and, like, whatever. But each little colony is its own, almost like its own little experiment. And then Theta doing experiments on vectors and humans and everything is like an experiment inside the experiment. Inside the other experiment. You know what I mean? Like, it's multiple levels because look at the way Theta is. It's kind of like high-techy. We're doing human experimentation. And then you have, who knows what the hell happened to Tau? Why it's like this. It's abandoned. You know, what were they doing here that then everybody died and now the tech still works, but nobody lives here except for the vectors. There's a story behind that. Maybe we'll never know. You look at Iota or whatever when we went there and it's very like old school and a little old-fashioned-y. And it's like, how in the world? But it's kind of like, yeah, like the other colonies know about the other colonies, but you're not allowed to go to them because you don't want to cross-contaminate in a way the experiments, you know, of like what's going on in a way. Like, so it's like, well, we set this one up and this one up, but look how they developed versus this one inside this, you know, third plant bubble. And then you're like, but then in the second plant bubble, they did the same thing. They set it up as similar, but like, look how different that turned out. So like, hey, they have a Theta colony. And you're like, we did the exact same in this bubble. In our Theta, we started with the exact same things that you did, right? And then look how differently they turned out. You know what I mean? Like an alternate reality thing. Like, okay, we put the exact same things together, but in the environment that's going on in Theta over here in the third plant, it's totally different than the way the second plant's coming out. I'm like, that's crazy. Or you did this and we had A, B, and C. You added D, but we added E, and just see how differently it develops like that. You know what I mean? It's like literally like we're Petri dishes, which is insane. And actually, I kind of like it if that's the way it's going, because that's crazier, you know? But anyway, I don't know if that's what Rio meant at all, because I think he was very unclear, and I think they're unclear for a reason. At least I hope I'm not supposed to understand exactly what he was saying 100%, because the man was very vague. But anyway, I will see you guys next time. Remember to give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to see more.